On this week's episode of I-501C, the podcast for nonprofit board members, I'm interviewing Stephen Minix. First of all, he's from San Diego, California, so we enjoy talking about the weather difference. But secondly, more importantly, he's a former basketball coach, athletic director. It's going to come through. You're going to hear in the interview. Now he's vice president of impact for a company called UpMetrics, which is quantifying and qualifying the impact of the work being done in the social sector. You're going to find this absolutely fascinating, and you will be jazzed by the end of this podcast because he radiates positive energy. Please enjoy this interview with Stephen Minix. Hey, did you know that we have a YouTube channel with all these podcasts and video? You get to see what's going on, what we look like when we're doing these podcasts. So if you'd like to go take a look, it's youtube.com/@thecorley company. We'll see you there. All right, our guest today on the I-501CU, the podcast for nonprofit board members, is Stephen Minix. Stephen is Vice President of Community at UpMetrics. He's going to tell us all about what UpMetrics is, but we're going to start off, Stephen, share with the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you became Vice President over at UpMetrics.
Outstanding. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Stephen Minix here by way of San Diego. I will tell you that I have tennis shoes on, not flip-flops. So, usually I wear some flip-flops when I'm doing these. But to answer your question directly, I'm a dad. I'm a dad, and I'm a perpetual believer in positive, period. I really do mean that. That's not just a buzzwords. I believe in kind of putting positive energy in the world. I'm a former teacher, high school basketball coach, PE teacher, college professor. But my whole point was, wherever you get to spend time in this world, you got to decide how you want to use it. And so a lot of times I've been involved in boards, I've been involved in the education side, the coaching side, and what I've seen in all that is you need to be able to translate and communicate across aisles, across funders and nonprofits, and I'm pretty good at translating. And I think that's kind of what I do in this world, is find ways to get organizations that are trying to work together to be a little bit more harmonious. I use some of that PE teacher energy to make that happen. But I also believe in the possible. And I think that's what this world's missing a lot of right now. We got folks that don't understand that you got to make it so. You got to effort it so. I'm a gardener. I'm a diehard Seahawks fan. I'm a kid from the Pacific Northwest. So whichever way you want to take this, but I know this. I think you're put on this planet to serve, and I'm trying to do that every day of my life as a dad, as a professional, as a businessman, and as a mentor. And I just believe in that. So that's who I am, and I'm excited to jump in today and share some space with you.
Well, and the positive energy just radiates. It's coming through the screen right now, Stephen, so this is quite enjoyable. And for the audience, he is in San Diego, so this is a coast-to-coast interview right now because, of course, we're here in Sarasota, Florida. But so you were an educator by training. You talked a little bit about your background. You moved into the private sector. You're vice president for community at UpMetrics. What does that mean, and what does UpMetrics do?
Absolutely. So UpMetrics is an impact analytics and storytelling platform. So we use our software and our team to kind of help organizations, nonprofits, philanthropic organizations, and impact investors use data and relationships to kind of, again, work more harmoniously. And what we're trying to do is get capital to communities quicker. And a lot of ways that you do that is through information and relationships. And the folks that need the resources don't always have the relationships. The folks that have the resources don't always have the relationships. And I get to play as the VP of community, create that space. And with my team, and we create that space. And obviously we work directly with organizations on their impact data and infrastructure, and who do they serve? What do they serve them with? What's the quality of that service? Is anybody better off? And how does it relate to the community? If you start to deconstruct what you do as an impact organization, whether you're a funder or a nonprofit producer, you start to realize that there's similar behaviors. Like, what are we trying to do? How do we do it? How do we do it together? How do we articulate what we're doing well? And how do we change when we look at information that needs to tell us a change? And so I get to create the convening space and say, but how are we going to do it together? Right. And so going back to my background as a teacher, that's what you do in a class. You create harmony. Try to find ways to get whoever's in your class to move along the continuum of learning, right? And some are ready to go, some are a little bit behind, some are a little bit ahead, but you got to differentiate and be able to get them all there. Well, that's all you do when you're trying to do collaboration work, right? Is try to get folks to understand, what are the tools you're bringing to the party? What are the tools you're bringing to the party? How can we work together? And so who better than a PE teacher by trade to kind of help facilitate that? But I also think it's kind of disarming to folks, right? And I mean that like a little bit nefariously. I mean that like sometimes folks think that you got to be so academically superior to be able to guide. No, you don't. You don't. You got to be able to articulate and listen and position information and put people in a position to work together. So to me, it's facilitation. To me, it goes back to being a point guard by trade. I'm a hoops guy. So how do you put people in a position to be successful, right? And well, you got to know each other, and we got to know what we're trying to get done. And I get to play pretty nice in that. I often use the metaphor about game film. I think about game film, right? You don't teach a kid to get better at shooting free throws by telling them to shoot more free throws. Eventually, you got to look at it, look in the mirror. What are you seeing? What are you not seeing? What do you want to see? And then use that to continue the learning. So I love it. I'm a creature of people. I mean that. Sitting behind a computer is not what I was built to do, but I get to do it now. And then only in an effort to get back in front of people.
Oh, I like this. Well, I welcome this conversation. So the power of collaboration, you touched on this. Why is that so important in the nonprofit sector?
Well, I mean, think about it. Collaboration is everything, right? Like it's put it this way. If I my hand here, if I flick you with my thumb and flick you with this finger and then tickle you with it is what it is. But if I put them all together and touch you once, you probably feel the impact a little different. I don't mean that to be a negative or a physically intimidating metaphor, but it's like, how do you pull together your faculties to actually do something? Nonprofits tend to not have all the resources they need to do the work they want to do, right? So they're usually trying to do $10 worth of work with a $3 budget, right? So they try to get resourceful. They try to figure out, how can we duct tape things together? How can we build coalitions? How can we... Right? Well, that's collaboration. That's relationship building. But that's also being empathetic and listening of what's out there, what's needed, and where you fit in. And so collaboration allows people to move further in their work, because that which individuals want to do, a group of individuals, if aligned, can do better. Right? And so collaboration moves at the speed of trust, often said. If you don't trust people, you ain't going to move with them. Right? And so then how can you build trust? Be authentic, be clear, disclose what it is you're trying to do, show that you're interested in what the other person's doing. And then, let's keep the metaphors going, break bread and keep it moving. How do we sit down, understand what we're trying to accomplish, and move? And collaboration is a powerful movement, but it's an actual action. You got to move. You can't just hope it's so or strategy document it so. You need to make moves. And that's what I try to facilitate with our team at Up in some of the places that we create that space.
Yeah. And in your experience, why isn't collaboration just a normal course of doing business? Why are people reluctant to do it?
Because it's hard. Right? People don't do things that are hard. Just like people don't do ab work at the gym, right? They don't do squat rack at the gym. They usually work on their biceps, right? And so they tend to work on the things that are easy or that they've seen that they can control. Look, I have a book right in front of me, Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. Name it. It is what it is. Folks usually have control issues as it pertains to collaboration. Well, Michael's not moving quick enough. I'm just going to do it myself, right? Reed isn't, folks aren't helping quick enough, so I'm just going to take it on myself. That is a way, but that's hero ball. And hero ball does not last. Eventually, you're exhausted, you're stretched, you can't replicate yourself. And so collaboration becomes maybe the antidote to some of that hero ball approach. And you got to work on it. You got to care about it, but you also got to be willing to give to get. Right? That's part of it. Most people want 100% of everything. I don't. I want 51. I want 51%, right? Because I understand how coalitions move. I understand how boards move. I understand how decisions are made usually. Usually it's with voting power. And to do that, you got to collaborate, right? I don't got to be empirically right. I got to be directionally correct and get y'all to believe in it. Then we can do that thing that we call collaboration in service of what we said. And so it's easier sometimes to do it by yourself. I would argue it's probably not as successful long-term. And I'm interested in long-term. What's the idea? Why do something right now that we don't think is going to last long-term if we just put a little bit of time on the front end of making sure we're aligned and collaborating?
And when you're working with a group and collaboration is required, it would be lovely if everybody said, yes, we're all in this together and we're moving forward. But I'm sure there's resistance, and you touched on it. It's the control, it's the familiarity. How do you work through that as a facilitator? How do you get people aligned?
You got to name it. You got to name the boogeyman before you can get over it, right? And I don't mean that boogeyman to say it's all bad. It's not. But you got to name the issue. If the issue is, I'm a nonprofit and I don't have any resources, and I've been asked to dance the jig all day, all year to try to get $2 more, right? That's a brutal spot to be in as a nonprofit. Versus, I actually understand how we're trying to rise the tide of all folks working on an issue area in a city. Well, if we're all working on the issue area, then we can fight this boogeyman of scarcity mindset that gets created. And then we can start to talk about, well, I don't need to this is like a relay race, right? And so I don't have to solve the problem of homelessness in my town, but I play into it this way, you play into it this way. And if we come together, we're starting to go back to that metaphor of the fist again, we're able to move a little bit more harmoniously and with more effectiveness. And so you have to be able to say, what is the issue? Whether we say it or not, everybody likes to walk around on smooth pavement and not trip. Right? But people don't agree on how we allocate tax dollars to fix potholes or sidewalks. So top level, we might agree that there's some things that we like, but when it comes to like, wait, you need me to give up something? You need me to move differently? Wait, well, hold on, me? Right? That's the problem that people get into. They get into what about me? This isn't a me game. This is a we game. That's what people have to understand in nonprofit, whether you are a board member, whether you are on the front line. It is a we game. It is a team sport. Team sports are not, there's no space for the individual to just pull one way without the team going with them. So how do you align? And I think that's the bigger piece. So when I think about it, I think about creating space for folks where they have to actually work on some of these things. We're not in a spreadsheet talking about 1 + 1 is 2. That's important. There's a space for that. But that's not when we're coming together talking about how do we work together. Right? And how do we, if what we are talking about with philanthropic capital and nonprofit lived experience, well, they got to meet and they have to be able to understand what it is collectively we can do together and what are we individually both going to work on to make so. Again, I go back to the way that I bring people together. We name a net up front. What are we trying to do, folks? How are we going to do it? And then we hold each other accountable to that.
Well, Stephen, you're painting a wonderful picture on collaboration, and it's not a quick process. It does take time. You have to pace yourself. Now, I want to go a little bit to UpMetrics.
Sure.
And you all, and I read on the information you sent in the bio,
Sure.
you're laser focused on impact, both measuring it and creating it, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. So would you explain just the what and how? How do you measure it? How do you create it? And what's the power of both of those?
So the reality is it's through our partners that do the work, right? We are a enabler, right? We don't do direct service. So I'm not I do in my personal life, but at work at Up, we work with funders that are trying to realize something with their giving. We work with nonprofits that are realizing something with their work. And so the reality is if we don't understand what we're trying to accomplish, we're never going to get there. How do you know you're there, right? So what I said earlier when we started this session about who do you serve? What do you serve them with? What is the quality of that service? Is anybody better off? And how does it pertain to the community? That impact framework allows organizations to own their own story about what it is they're trying to accomplish. And then underneath that is the KPIs and data that goes along with just those columns. Because then when I sit with a funder and I say, what are your thematic issues you fund? Well, then I can speak to you with bass in my voice about what it is that I do, how it relates to what you do, because I've deconstructed it, I understand it, and I can speak to you this way, this way, or that way. Whichever way you want to hear it, it's data-backed, it's precise, and we understand what we're doing. So our technology and our team help organizations do that and then build in that connective tissue to collect that information, report out on it, leverage it for their use, whether it's to one funder, to themselves to get better, et cetera. On the funder side, they give out money to different issues and they want to see things move, whatever that movement looks like. They're not in the weeds doing the work. They are the capital. They might have lived experience in that space too, but their capital allows them to fund the nonprofits that then can help realize that work. But there needs to be a shared system of truth, not in proving it works or not proving it works, about speaking to the efficacy. So what we do with our team is help both sides of that equation streamline some of that reporting stuff that goes into back to the dashboard that we're all looking at to determine whether we're effective. So then we can still build that trust, which plays directly into collaboration, because we've already stated collaboration moves the speed of trust. And so if I can see it objectively and subjectively, qualitatively or quantitatively, whichever way you want to say it, if I can see the head and the heart of the information in a collaborative space, I feel more likely to be full-throated in my participation in it, right? And so we work with both sides of the folks on that. And the reality is we're translators. We're trying to get folks to understand kind of how do you see information, because nonprofits don't operate off a P&L too often, right? They operate on like the actual emotional connection to the work they do, not because it's without data. It's just a different type of data that informs the work. So yes, you have the objective. How many folks did we help? What zip codes? What was the burn rate? What was the ROI? The social return on investment, all those things. But then there's this other part of it, which is anybody better off, right? As a teacher, I don't care to look at another spreadsheet about how many heads in beds we've affected. I don't care about that. That's not going to move me. But when you want to have a conversation about the gainfully employed man now in the South Side of Chicago and how he's able to pay for the own resources for his family, I'm a dad. You got me now. I can empathize, I can understand, and now I can put my passion behind support. And that's kind of what we try to do with our technology and our team. The what, the tech and the team, and the how in the movement. And then we create space in a lot of our collaborative cohort work, stuff that I get to be a part of, where we bring these folks together and don't just talk about it in a spreadsheet. We actually demystify, and we start to feed those relationship cultivation efforts through working on our dashboards, working on our data, working on what it is we said we try to do. So you kind of banana on the tailpipe a little bit. You can get folks kind of focused on data by taking them into a relationship conversation, because there is no story without numbers, and there are no numbers without stories. And if you can weave those, you can be a far more effective communicator of what it is that you do.
And so who typically engages you all? Who hires you? Is it the funder? Is it already a collaborative of nonprofits? Who pays your bill to bring you in?
Yeah, a lot of times it's the funders, right? Because they're interested in providing resources to their nonprofit partners. They don't want to give them more work, but they want to give them tools to do the work that they want to do, right? And so it's threading that. Now, it's not always simple on that. Sometimes you have to be able to articulate to folks like this isn't more work, this is improving the work, right? But that's up to the person that's getting the tools to understand that. We built this purposeful in the sector of impact for a reason. This isn't taking some big business analytics platform and squaring it into make it nonprofit. No, we built this from the ground up to be purposeful for philanthropy, impact space, and impact investors and nonprofits. So it's that's who usually pays us, impact investors and funders, but a lot of nonprofits come to us directly too, because they see the value in this work. And so if we're doing the cohort work, obviously a funder underwrites it. But a lot of times nonprofits will find us and want to work with us directly too. And look, the reality is the capital is with the funders usually, and they want this. They want to create collaboration and do things differently. Well, then their philanthropic capital should move differently too, and we just give them an opportunity to make that tough to say no, because we're trying to help them realize some of the work that they're trying to do on both sides of that.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so as you're talking to nonprofit board members out there, and a funder has this crazy idea, they want to measure outcomes, which is very logical today, but there's still some resistance to that, saying, we can't really measure. What would you say to that board member? How would you educate him or her that this is really important stuff?
It's not perfect. I'm a teacher. Classrooms aren't perfect. We don't just get to A+. You know what I mean? Learning is messy. This is the issue. I think folks forget that nonprofit work is an exercise, and it's a social entrepreneurial effort, right? It's a business, but it's got a social lens on it. And so it's not just we've got more, we did more, but you got to learn, and learning implies feedback, increased, decrease, reflection, all these things, not perfect annual reports at the end of the year that we can pat ourselves on the back for. That is malarkey, respectfully, right? Doesn't make sense. Why do we want annual reports at the end of the year that say you're perfect? That isn't nothing. That is not real. And so we have to get off this kind of weird validation play that we do in nonprofit work. And I don't think it's always because of ill actors. It's not that. It's just, I think sometimes people are afraid to show the reality. It's like the parents that get embarrassed when they're at a dinner table and they pull out the cell phone to give to their kid to play with. And they're like, oh, we don't normally do this. We don't normally do this. Don't worry about us. We don't, right? It's kind of like that. You're like, I don't care. It's your kid. You do what you got to do to get through the day. I get it. But like, it's kind of like that. But I'm not going to do that because if I give my kid the phone, I'm giving the kid the phone. If I'm not giving the kid the phone, I'm not giving the kid the phone. But it's not because we do. And I think nonprofit board members tend to get on this cycle of like, go to quarterly meetings, approve the minutes, come back at the end of the year and give me the annual report and tell me we were perfect. Then I'll evaluate you. And then I'll tell you we can do it again tomorrow. That doesn't make sense. That's not going to improve things. So what we got to understand is it's messy and it's okay. Learn in public. That's what we should do. Not learn in private. Learn in public so other people can see that. Also, data is not the enemy. Right? Some people think trust-based means no data. No, it does not. It does not mean no data. It means the person doing the work should lead with what success looks like. Whatever that data looks like, they should elevate. And then you should be able to understand that. And so it's not the enemy. It's another key tool to be leveraged by the people doing the work. And I'd also say you got to understand that board members it's not nice to host people at your posh spot. Go where the community is doing the work. If your work is in the community, bring lunch to the people doing the work in the community. Don't come to your boardroom and take people away from their work and think you're doing them a solid. They're not. You're not. You're taking them away from the work they want to be doing. But there's ways to kind of olive branch and be a partner beyond just a board meeting person that I think folks should engage and consider. And also, just most importantly, hold the mirror up. What kind of board member are you today? Period, or question mark. Then ask, what kind of board member does the executive director or CEO need me to be? Then, am I prepared to do that? Those three questions will allow you to make sure that you're serving the mission of the org and not just serving the mission of you.
Stephen, you have provided so many nuggets and all that, and it's so obvious you're a former basketball coach and athletic director. I love listening to you. So, how do people, if they want to find you, sure, how do they get in touch with you? How do they learn more about UpMetrics?
Sure. Website, UpMetrics.com. There is another UpMetrics out there, but we'll make sure we go with the .com one. That's us. But also pretty active on LinkedIn. I mean, if you look me up, Stephen Minix on LinkedIn, you'll be able to find me pretty quickly. I'm obnoxious and probably holding up a hand like this or something like that. But we're trying to put good energy out there. But the cool part is I get to represent a bunch of really rad humans that are doing really cool work. I just get lucky to be out in front and talk about it a little bit, but you're only as good as the team you keep around you and the team that you're on. And so a bunch of really thoughtful humans doing this stuff. But if you look us up on LinkedIn, look us up on our website, you'll see some pretty cool things. We always try to tell the stories of the folks doing the work that we do it with, because that's the real heroes of the stories, those folks leading the work, especially at the nonprofit level. And I'm always, I don't sleep much, and it's not because I'm unable. It's because I really enjoy being awake. I really enjoy helping, and while I got air in my lungs, I definitely want to serve. So if I could be of benefit to y'all anyway, definitely hit me up, and I'd love to have a conversation.
Stephen, thank you. Your positive energy, like I said earlier, does radiate. It is radiated throughout this entire conversation, and I'm grateful for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Minix with UpMetrics, and you can find him on LinkedIn. Like I said, Stephen, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Appreciate it, man. It's a great time. Enjoy the afternoon.
All right, well, I bet you're about to run through a wall like I am, Reed. This guy, Stephen, wow, he's full of energy. But this is Recapping with Reed. Your takeaways, Reed.
At the very beginning, Stephen talked about the power of collaboration, and he used that phrase that we love, collaboration moves at the speed of trust, but also he specified that collaboration is an action. It does not just happen on its own. You do need to be active in that pursuit.
And number two.
I loved his phrasing on collaboration. He was like, I don't want 100% of anything. I just want 51%. He understands that you don't need full control, but you want that voting majority. So with anything, he says, I don't want 100%. I want 51%. That's collaboration.
That's right. And number 3.
At the very end, he started talking about trust-based. We've heard a lot about trust-based philanthropy. And he's like, trust-based does not mean no data. You are trusting that you do what you say you're going to do, but it doesn't mean that it's not backed by data. So UpMetrics helps organizations create that data.
Yeah, quite insightful. And I thought the way you articulate it was very important. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, recapping the read. And we will I-501 see you next week.